Divine Victory Unveiled. The incredible story of Deborah, Israel's faithful judge and heroine. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, the children of Israel cried out to the Lord because they were oppressed under the heavy hand of Jabin, king of Canaan. For 20 long years they bore the yoke of slavery, their spirits shackled in despair as the iron chariots of Sisera trampled their hopes. Yet in the midst of this anguish, a beacon of divine light began to flicker through the shadows. The prophetess Deborah, a woman chosen by God to guide his people. Beneath the shade of the palm tree that bore her name, situated between Ramah and Bethel, Deborah issued her judgments with wisdom and understanding. The air thrummed with expectation, for she understood the silent yearning of her people. As she sat, listening to the hearts of the disheartened, a divine whisper pierced the chaos, an undeniable call to action. With a spirit aflame, Deborah discerned the moment had come to deliver Israel from its bondage. Summoning Barak, a valiant leader from the tribe of Naphtali, she declared, "Go gather your men from the tribes of Israel, and prepare for battle against Sisera, for the Lord has given him into your hands." Barak, a soldier weighed down by doubt, replied, "If you will go with me, I will go, but if you will not go with me, I will not go." Deborah, undeterred, said, "I will surely go with you. However, the glory of the victory will not belong to you but to a woman." The promise of glory, echoing through the air, unfurled like a banner of destiny. As Barak rallied the men of Naphtali and Zebulun at the foot of Mount Tabor, a sense of unease hung heavy in the air. On the other side, Sisera summoned his powerful forces, confident in his iron chariots and formidable warriors. The day of reckoning dawned. Darkness raised a tension-filled curtain over the valley of the Kishon River. With resolute faith, Deborah ascended the heights of the mountain. Her heart beat in harmony with the voice of the Almighty. "Arise, for the Lord has gone out before you," she proclaimed, her voice cutting through the air like a battle horn. The army surged forth, emboldened by the truth of Deborah's words. But even as they charged, Sisera's camp erupted in confusion. The Lord unleashed a torrential rain, flooding the valley and rendering the chariots useless. Iron became clunky, and fear spilled into the hearts of Canaanites. Sisera's confidence shattered, and as chaos erupted, he fled on foot, desperate for refuge. He stumbled into the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, who recognized him but was sworn in allegiance to the God of Israel. The air was thick with suspense, the air crackling with potential, as Sisera lay unaware of the trap that fate held for him. What would Jael decide? In this pivotal moment, the divine plan began to weave a tapestry of deliverance. The final threads of battle had yet to be gathered. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. Sisera, a warrior of arrogance now masked in fear, remained oblivious to the providence surrounding him. The God of Israel was on the move. What courage would spring forth from the woman's heart, and what resolution awaited the defenders of faith? The weight of destiny rested on a precipice as the saga was about to unfurl into a divine climax that would mark Israel's deliverance forever. And Jael looked upon Sisera as he lay breathless within her tent. The sun cast long shadows as fear wrestled against the resolve within her heart. The man before her was a warrior, a formidable foe, yet he bore the weight of defeat upon his shoulders. As she whispered softly, "Turn aside, my lord, turn aside to me, do not fear," she invited him in, not just to safety, but toward the fulfillment of God's justice. Sisera, weary and having fled the chaos of battle, trusted naively in the hands of a Kenite woman. "Give me a little water to drink," he pleaded, for he was parched from his flight. Jael, remembering her allegiance to the one true God, gave him milk in a vessel, hoping to quell his thirst and also to settle his spirit. As Sisera drank, his eyelids grew heavy with the fatigue of his struggle, and soon the terror of the day enveloped him like a shroud. "Stand at the door of the tent," he commanded, "and if any man comes asking if you've seen me, say no." Jael nodded. Yet inside her a fierce battle raged, sparked by the resolve of the God of Israel. She waited but a moment longer before making a decision that would echo through the annals of time. Quietly, she approached him as he slept, and taking a tent peg in one hand and a hammer in the other, she drove the peg through his temple, piercing the darkness and sealing his fate. In that very moment the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of crimson, an omen of the end of tyranny that would reverberate across the land. From the tent, the sound of Sisera's fall echoed as a solemn victory song, one that proclaimed the deliverance birthed through an unexpected vessel. Meanwhile, Barak was pursuing Sisera and found himself approaching Jael's tent, the very place where victory had been sealed. As he entered, Jael emerged to meet him, a smile of triumph illuminating her face. "Come, I will show you the man whom you seek," she said, leading him to Sisera, now lifeless, proof of God's fidelity to his promise. The heart of Israel soared with the same wind that whipped through the valley, a wind proclaiming the faithfulness of Yahweh who, though the storms raged and the chariots of iron seemed insurmountable, delivered his people through the courage of a woman. And with that victory, a song arose among the tribes of Israel. Deborah and Barak's song of praise would become part of the annals of their history, declaring, "When leaders lead in Israel, when the people willingly offer themselves, bless the Lord." Judges 5:2. Through these echoes of praise, the essence of the divine plan rippled outwards, drawing all hearts towards the holy fulfillment of God's promises. But amidst this joy lay a bittersweet awareness that the power of evil, though crushed, would not be silenced forever. The cycle of faith and failure would continue as the children of Israel grappled with their covenant fidelity. Little did they know that the whispers of their future awaited them with dark foreboding, reminding them of a sovereign God who would lead through trials and tribulations, shaping their destiny in ways they could hardly yet imagine. What future battles awaited? Would they learn from this divine lesson? And there arose a great joy amongst the children of Israel, for they had known the hand of Yahweh upon them, like the morning sun breaking the night. Barak and Jael joined the throng, leading the celebration of deliverance as they sang praises to the Most High. "Heavenly is our God, who has shattered the adversaries bound to our chains," their voices proclaimed, rising like incense to the throne of grace. Deborah the prophetess gathered the people in her heart, lifting up her voice in song, declaring the deeds of the Lord. "The stars in their courses fought against Sisera," she exclaimed, reveling in the victory that the Almighty had wrought through unexpected means. The women danced and their joyous laughter filled the air. It was a moment when hope fluttered like a bird set free from its cage. Yet, a shadow lingered on the horizon, for the hearts of the people were turned once again. As the years passed, the glistening remembrance of God's mighty act began to fade, much like the morning dew upon the grass, and with it, their covenant fidelity waned. They grew careless and sought after foreign gods, turning their faces from the one who had brought them out of Egypt and given them the land of promise. In the midst of this, the Lord raised up judges to guide them back to righteousness, his fervent mercy falling like rain upon a parched land. Deborah continued to serve as a beacon of truth among the people, her wisdom a refuge. "Return to the Lord, O children of Israel," she would cry, her heart burdened with the plight of a people who stiffened their necks against the hand that saved them. Now after 40 years of peace, the cycle of oppression returned, as it was foretold. A new king arose, Jabin of Hazor, with a mighty army, led by Sisera's kin. The people of Israel cried out once again in their distress, their hearts gripped with fear, as oppression descended like a dark cloud. They remembered the victories of old, but their hope seemed a distant memory. At that time Deborah summoned Barak, saying, "The Lord commands you. Gather the men of Naphtali and Zebulun and march towards Mount Tabor. For the Lord has delivered Sisera into your hand, and a great battle shall ensue." Barak hesitated, trembling at the thought of what lay ahead. "If you will go with me, I will march," he declared, knowing the strength of Deborah's presence was a reminder of God's power. With great resolve, Deborah assented, saying, "I will surely go with you, but know that the glory of this battle will not be yours. for the Lord shall deliver Sisera into the hand of a woman. And thus the declaration of God's sovereignty echoed, the fate of Israel entwined with the faithfulness of his promises. As Barak gathered his troops, the cries of God's people had risen like incense, the air thick with the scent of worship and urgency. They stood at the precipice of a new confrontation, while Deborah led as a prophetess, a warrior of faith, ready to step into a divine moment of destiny. But unbeknownst to them, the outcome of this impending battle was not merely a struggle for freedom. It was a demonstration of God's omnipotence, revealing layers within his sovereign purpose. What great lesson awaited the fathers and mothers of Israel in this unfolding tapestry of their deliverance? As the drumbeats of war echoed ever closer, God's plan twined through the hearts of men and women like the finest filigree. The promise yet to be fulfilled trembled on the edge of revelation, awaiting its appointed time. And it came to pass that the appointed day approached, when the sun would rise over Mount Tabor, illuminating the field where valor and faith would clash. Barak rallied his men, men of valor and courage, their faces set like flint against the day's approaching storm. "Fear not," he declared, "for the Lord our God commands us, and he shall fight for us." Deborah, resolute in heart, stood firm at Barak's side. "Arise, for this is the day of deliverance," she proclaimed, her eyes reflecting the fiery zeal of the Almighty. "Let us not forget the covenant of our forefathers. The promise given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob still rings true today." As they trod upon the soil of their ancestors, the ground trembled with the weight of their faith. Joshua reminded them that the Lord had given to Israel the land flowing with milk and honey. They marched not in their strength, but in the strength of Yahweh. And as they ascended the mount, the heavens opened and the sound of thunder rolled, signaling the divine presence among them. In the valley below, Sisera's chariots gleamed menacingly in the sun. With a multitude stronger than the sands of the seashore, they awaited the command of their king. But God's hand was poised, ready to pour forth his judgment. "See how they trust in chariots and horses," Deborah said, her voice unwavering. "But we will trust in the name of the Lord our God." At the very moment Barak sounded the trumpet, a mighty wind stirred across the land as if the breath of the Almighty blew from the heavens. "For the Lord has gone out before you," Deborah reminded Barak, her faith lighting a path in the darkness of fear. The clash of steel and the war cries rent the air as they descended into the fray. The very earth beneath Sisera's chariots turned to mud under the torrent sent by the heavens. Their horses stumbled as the God of Israel unleashed confusion upon them, scattering their ranks as leaves before a tempest. The men of Naphtali and Zebulun pressed forward, overtaken by the spirit of valor. "Pursue not merely for victory, but for the honor of our God," Barak cried, emboldened by Deborah's prophetic presence. As the battle raged, Sisera's army faltered, finding their strength diminished by the might of Israel's unseen commander. In that hour, Sisera felt the winds of defeat at his back. He abandoned his chariot, fleeing on foot into the wilderness, seeking a refuge where none could touch him. Yet, a story yet unfolded, as he crossed paths with Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. "Turn aside, my lord," Jael beckoned, her voice honeyed yet sharp as a dagger. "Come into my tent, for I have spared your life." Heeding her invitation, Sisera ventured inside, weary from battle. He sought comfort, but instead, he found a trap woven with providential hands, for the presence of the Lord was with Jael. As Sisera lay down exhausted, Jael took a tent peg and hammer, steeling herself for an act of obedience to divine command. She knew the fate awaiting Sisera, the one who oppressed her people. With a swift blow, she fulfilled the word of Deborah, sealing victory for Israel in the most unforeseen manner. And as dawn broke, with the cries of victory rising like incense to heaven, the people of Israel stood in awe, their hearts returning to the God who had delivered them again. The cycle continued, and yet the lesson remained. Deliverance often lay hidden in unexpected vessels. Would this victory bless them with a renewed covenant heart, or would they return to the idolatry forsaken just moments ago? What more did God wish to reveal to his people as they embarked on a new chapter? The promise loomed closer, veiled but tangible, whispering of destinies entwined under his sovereign plan. And it came to pass that the people of Israel rejoiced in their victory, singing songs of praise and exalting the name of the Lord. The earth reverberated with their shouts, and the sound of jubilance filled the valleys. Blessed be the Lord, they declared, for he had delivered them from the hand of their oppressor. Deborah arose, a prophetess and leader of the people, and she sang a song, her voice echoing like thunder rolling across the hills. When the leaders lead in Israel, when the people offer themselves willingly, bless the Lord. Judges 5:2. The mountains stood with her, trembling and bowing as the heavens bore witness to her victory song, for it was a song of the Lord's glory and might. Barak, emboldened by the spirit of courage, joined in the song of triumph. Fallen is the enemy whose chariots of iron were no match for our God, he proclaimed. They recounted the exploits of the Lord, how he silenced the thunder of Sisera's chariots, and turned their might into weakness with but a whisper. Among them, the people remembered Jael, the cunning woman who had played her part in the grand orchestration of the Almighty. Her act of bravery and obedience did not go unnoticed. Jael, the wife of Heber, is blessed above women, Deborah sang, the words flowing from her lips like sweet wine. For she struck the head of the oppressor and pierced his temple. In their hearts they marveled, for they saw that the Lord wielded his authority through both mighty men and humble women. Yet as days unfolded in the joy of their deliverance, the hearts of the people began to wander. Uncertain was the gaze of Israel as harvests ripened, yet in their abundance, they turned their attention away from the God of their salvation. What new struggles await us, they questioned, whispering among themselves, for the peace was thick with the tension of forgetfulness. Deborah, with the Spirit of the Lord upon her, summoned the elders of Israel. Gather, O Israel, lest you forget. The victory was not ours, but the Lord's. Remember the days of old when he led you from bondage in Egypt and delivered you at the Red Sea. Her words flowed like a river, urging the people back to the wonder of God's faithfulness. As her message settled among them, a discomfort stirred within Israel's leaders. They knew their hearts had strayed, and burdens of a future unknown crept upon them. What will become of our children? Shall we allow them to forget the deeds of our God? They pondered in their councils. In the distance, the shadow of oppression began to loom again, a consequence of their drifting hearts. Deborah proclaimed, "The Lord will rise again. He will raise another judge among you, for he desires a people who will walk in his statutes, who will not forget his covenant." As she stood firm, the earth beneath them shook, a tremor heralding impending trials yet to come. The Israelites felt the weight of that divine promise. They realized their need for a return to faithfulness. The lessons of the past were being etched anew into their hearts as they awaited further revelation from the Lord. But what new trials would come? And who would emerge to deliver God's people once more as he wove his tapestry of deliverance and justice? The chapter closed, but the story of Israel was far from finished, for the Lord had more to unveil under his sovereign plan. And it came to pass that in the days that followed, the hearts of the Israelites grew heavy, remembering the words of Deborah, the prophetess. The winds blew cold, and the skies darkened, signaling that the cycle of forgetfulness was soon to bring forth a new trial. Whisperings among the tribes began, "Will the hand of our God still be upon us? Will he fight for us yet again?" In those days the Lord spoke again to Deborah, and she understood that the time of testing was at hand. "Go, arise, for I have chosen a man to lead them back," he commanded. With a heart full of faith, Deborah called for Barak once more. As he joined her, she said, "The Lord commands you, go. Gather men from Naphtali and Zebulun to Mount Tabor, for I will draw out Sisera, the captain of Jabin's army, to the river Kishon. For by him I will deliver you yet again." Barak trembled at the Lord's command. "If you will go with me, I will go," he replied, for he feared the might of Sisera's chariots and the strength of iron. Deborah, full of assurance, answered, "I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, the glory shall not be yours in the journey you are taking, for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman." With Yahweh's presence enveloping them, Barak gathered the men, and the spirit of unity stirred their hearts. They set their eyes toward the hills, a multitude ready for battle, yet feeling the weight of divine expectation. As they assembled, the people prayed fervently, their voices rising like incense to the heavens. "Lord, deliver us," they implored, remembering the promise of old. Then, in the twilight of a new day, the armies assembled at Mount Tabor. The ground shook beneath them, and they prepared to face the enemy. Barak, armed with faith, rallied the men. "Fear not, for the Lord is with us," he cried, recalling the victories of their forefathers. Each soldier felt the pulse of divine destiny thrumming within their hearts. As daytime yielded to dusk, the skies changed. God's forces were gathered. With a mighty roar, the storm clouds gathered above Mount Tabor, lightning danced with fervor, and the thunder resounded like celestial artillery. The fierce winds swept across the valley, scattering the enemies of Israel. The commander of heaven's armies stirred the hearts of men, igniting their courage. Suddenly, at that divine moment, Sisera's army, blinded by fear and confusion, turned their backs to the Israelites, fleeing into the shadows. Barak charged, cutting through the disarray, proclaiming victory in the name of the Lord. "This day we shall see the hand of God," he declared. Yet in the midst of the great battle, Sisera fled from his chariot and sought refuge in the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber. Unbeknownst to him, she was a woman of faith who had vowed to honor the Lord's ways. She welcomed him, offering weary comfort and a covering, yet a fire smoldered in her heart. As Sisera slept, the shades of night falling upon them, Jael took a tent peg and a hammer in her hands, driven by the Spirit of the Almighty. Quietly, she approached, her heart aligned with the purpose of God. Just as Deborah had proclaimed, the glory of the victory would belong to her, a woman prepared to act. With each drive of the peg, she fulfilled God's plan unfolding, executing divine justice. A darkness fell over the land, for the last breath of Sisera was also a promise fulfilled. The deliverance of Israel was near. The people of God awaited the dawn, for in their hearts they sensed that the time for God's revelation was upon them. But even now, what greater purpose lay behind the actions of Jael? How would this victory not only restore peace but reveal the deeper, sovereign plans of the Lord for his people Israel? So heavy was the anticipation, for God's story was not yet complete. New mysteries awaited the faithful seeking his face, and it came to pass that as dawn broke, a new light shone upon the land. The cries of victory filled the air among the Israelites, whose hearts were yet stirred by amazement and joy. They gathered at the feet of Deborah, for the news of Sisera's demise reverberated like thunder across the valleys. And Deborah, filled with the Spirit of God, proclaimed unto the people, "Sing unto the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. He has cast the horse and his rider into the sea." The assembly was enveloped in a powerful chorus, lifting their voices in unison, exalting the name of the Most High. "Praise be to God, the God of Israel, who has turned the tides against our oppressors," they sang, recalling how he had brought them through fire and flood. Yet within the heart of Deborah resided a solemn understanding. "Though victory is sweet, there remains a path yet unwalked," she said, her gaze fixed upon the expanse of the horizon. "The Lord has delivered us from the hand of Sisera. Yet still, we must turn our hearts to him, lest we forget the lessons of his deliverance." Then came Barak, his demeanor a mix of triumph and reverence. "Deborah, great is our God who has delivered us. Shall we not pursue the remnants of Jabin's army?" he implored, his eyes glistening with fervor. And Deborah, wise and discerning, replied, "Indeed, let us go forth, for the hand of God is upon us, and the time for utter eradication of this threat is now." Thus they gathered again, choosing valiant men from every tribe, and this time they set out as one body united, armed not merely with swords, but with the faith that God would guide their path. As they marched, the ground beneath them trembled with the echo of divine purpose. Meanwhile, in the tent of Jabin, panic gripped the darkened hearts of his men as the news spread that their commander lay defeated. Jabin stood over his forces, wringing his hands, and said, "We must flee, our doom approaches." But from the shadows, whispers of dismay filled the camp as the Israelites drew near. emboldened by the mighty hand of God. In the wilderness, the sun brightened the day as Deborah and Barak pressed forward, their spirits soaring in the knowledge that they fought not in their strength, but in the name of the Lord. The echo of praise and worship intermingled with the clang of metal as they overtook the remnants of Sisera's scattered soldiers. The day unfolded as a testament not just to human strength but of divine strategy. "Look, some have fallen, yet we must hasten," Barak declared, watching his men follow with fervor. For God was not merely delivering an army, but was renewing a covenant with his people, a manifestation of divine hope amidst chaos. Thus it was that the Lord orchestrated the collapse of the enemy's might, sowing terror among them as the Israelites advanced. The tales of God's delivered victories were revisited by the warriors, tales that held the power of truth and remembrance. Yet, how mysterious is the purpose of the Lord. For as Jael returned to her home, her heart entwined with the promise of her people, little did she know that her act of faith would resonate through generations. Her name, written in the annals of time, would inspire future hearts to trust in God's design. And there, the shadows whispered of what was yet to come, urging the faithful to ponder. What deeper purpose dwelled within the victory of this day? Little did they know that the unfolding of God's great plan was only beginning. For as Deborah led Israel toward freedom, a new revelation awaited, a promise that rivaled even that of a mighty deliverance. The Lord's hand was setting the stage for something magnificent, reflecting his glorious sovereignty and eternal faithfulness to his covenant people. And it came to pass that as the sun climbed higher, its rays piercing through the veil of the morning mist, the Israelites pressed forward with resolute determination. Deborah, the prophetess, stood determinedly at the forefront, her voice rising above the tumult with unwavering clarity. "Fear not, for the Lord has gone before us. He shall deliver the rest of our enemies into our hands, as he did with Sisera." Barak, filled with faith and courage, rallied the men around him. "Let us not waver, for the God of Israel fights for us. Today we shall wipe away the shame of oppression." The hearts of the warriors quickened, emboldened by the Spirit of the Lord, igniting their fervor as they marched. The banners of their tribes held high, symbols of their unwavering hope. In the distance the remnants of Jabin's army retreated, like shadows fleeing the light of dawn. Fear gripped their hearts, for the tales of the Lord's power had begun to reach their ears, and the last confrontation between light and darkness awaited. But even as victory seemed palpable, unseen forces whispered among the hearts of the Israelites, urging diligence and prayer. Deborah called out, "Brothers and sisters, lift up your prayers unto the Lord and seek his wisdom. The battle belongs to him." Among the throngs, a young warrior named Zebulun stepped forward, his eyes bright with the fire of his spirit. "Deborah, let me be among those who shall lead the charge. It is my heart's desire to fight for our people." His fervent plea resonated with many, who echoed their agreements, willing to stand as one before their God. As the clash of arms and the cries of men filled the air, Deborah and Barak moved decisively through the chaos, their eyes ever fixed upon the Lord, the one who commanded the wind and the waves. "Shall we not take courage from the stories of old?" Deborah urged, her heart recalling the triumphs of Abraham, Moses, and Joshua. "For we are his chosen people, called not for ease but for his glory." In the valley, as the clash of swords rang thunderously, Jabin's remaining forces began to crumble, terror gripping their hearts as the Israelites moved with divine purpose. Thunder cracked across the sky, as if heaven itself bore witness to the battle below. Barak led the charge, empowered and driven by the assurance that victory lay within their grasp. But amidst the clamor, fear lingered within the camp of Jabin. "Flee! We cannot withstand them!" cried one of Jabin's commanders, panic suffusing his countenance. "The God of Israel fights for them." And thus they scattered like leaves before a storm, terror-stricken and adrift without their commander. Yet after the consuming battle had waned, Deborah turned her heart to the Lord. "O mighty God, we stand in awe of your deliverance. Reveal to us the depth of your plan, for we sense that this victory is but a prelude." Her voice broke with reverence, as the echoes were met with silence in the heavens, a moment where the world held its breath. In that sacred breath, a glimpse of what was to come was revealed. The time shall arise when a king shall be to emerge from Israel, one who shall guide my people, a leader not unlike David, who shall unify and strengthen the nation, leading them towards righteousness. The heavenly voice spoke within her spirit, igniting hope once more. And so it was that the triumph of that day planted seeds of promise throughout the land. The Israelites, full of praise and gratitude, rejoiced, yet still the whisper of God lingered in their midst, a beckoning to the deeper understanding of his sovereign plan. For even now, behold, I prepare the path to redemption, the culmination of my will through a future deliverer. Thus the stage continued to be set, where history would unfold and prophecies would awaken, weaving the destiny of Israel into the grand design of the Almighty. And it came to pass that the dawn of victory brought not just rejoicing, but a solemn realization among the Israelites. The ground on which they stood was hallowed by the presence of their God. As the dust settled and the last echoes of battle faded into stillness, the people gathered at the foot of Mount Tabor, their hearts lifting in a symphony of praise. Deborah led them in song, her voice a sweet anthem of gratitude. Sing, O barren one, for the Lord has wrought deliverance. He has shattered the cords of oppression that bound us. Barak, still breathless from the exertions of battle, stood beside her, his armor glinting in the morning light as he declared, "Let it be known that the Lord fights battles for his people. Today, we have tasted the sweetness of freedom." Yet amid their exaltation, the winds whispered of greater things to come, and Deborah, her spirit attuned to the unseen, felt a weight upon her heart. She prayed earnestly, "O Lord, grant us clarity for the path ahead. We have overcome this foe, but the land is still in need of healing. How shall we navigate the days to unfold?" As she sought the face of the Lord, a presence enveloped her, gentle yet commanding. "Deborah, I have heard your supplications," the voice resounded within her, "and indeed the skirmishes shall continue until the full measure of my justice is satisfied. For I have chosen not only you but a new generation that shall rise to become the light amidst the darkness." Deborah's heart stirred with anticipation, for now she began to comprehend the depth of the divine orchestration unfolding before them. "What are you revealing, Heavenly Father?" she beseeched. "What is this generation that shall carry forth your will?" In that moment of divine communion, scenes flashed before her as visions of a land unified under a future king draped in righteousness. Voices called, declaring, "Prepare the way. A leader shall emerge who will rule with justice and guide my people in the ways of truth." As the murmurs of this revelation reached the ears of the faithful gathered around, they pondered deeply the implication of such a promise. Zebulun, whose heart had ignited with fervor on that battlefield, stepped forth boldly. "Deborah, tell us, what shall we do in the light of this prophetic word? How shall we prepare ourselves?" "Rally the clans," she instructed, her voice steady and filled with conviction. "Gather the people to the cities, those who have remained in fear. Encourage them with the testimonies of God's might. Every tribe must bond together, for the days ahead shall test our unity. Without it we cannot endure the trials that shall surely come." The Israelites, invigorated by Deborah's call, surged forth, determined to encourage those who had not yet felt the warmth of hope. They spread the news of their miraculous victory, the narrative igniting a fire across the land, stirring those who had long abandoned their allegiance to the God of Israel. Meanwhile, deep within the stronghold of Jabin's remnants, dismay ruled as the echoes of defeat seeped into their hearts. "What have we brought upon ourselves?" cried one among them, as shadows hung heavily in their midst. "The God of Israel fights for them, and we remain powerless." Yet from the ashes of despair, an insidious plan began to weave amongst the remnants seeking to reclaim what was lost. Honest hearts or hardened ones, the question lingered. What future awaits those who defy the living God? As Deborah stood face to face with the horizon, she sensed the profound truth. The upcoming struggles would not only forge the path of a nation but also weave threads of faith, drawing a clearer vision of a covenant renewed. The sovereign plan of God continued to pulse in the hearts of his people, emboldening them amidst uncertainties, and thus as the sun descended casting a golden hue upon the weary yet victorious faces, the Lord whispered anew, "Know that I am your God who reigns powerful among you. Yet even now, Look towards the dawn, for I shall bring forth a shepherd from my own hand to guide you through the wilderness ahead." With trembling hearts they awaited the unfolding of his mysteries, knowing the journey had just begun and that the ultimate plan of the Almighty lurked on the horizon, waiting to be revealed. And it came to pass that the people of Israel, renewed in spirit by their recent victory, gathered once again. Deborah, the prophetess and judge, stood among them, her countenance radiant with the assurance of God's promises. The victory over Sisera and Jabin had ignited their faith, yet the weight of new trials loomed, for the cycle of forgetfulness among God's people was a recurring peril. "Brothers and sisters," Deborah cried, her voice echoing like a clarion call through the valley, "let us not forget the Lord our God who has fought for us, who has delivered us from our oppressors. Remember that he has chosen not just to save, but to transform our hearts. We have prevailed by his hand, yet the future calls for steadfastness in faith." Barak, the valiant leader, stepped forward, emboldened by Deborah's words. "Let us gather our families and our clans, for our journey is not finished," he implored, the fire of determination burning brightly in his heart. "We must cherish the momentum of this victory and strengthen our unity as a people. Now is the time to renew the covenant before our God." As the people listened, they found their hearts stirred, and in that sacred assembly they drew nearer to God. They knelt in prayer, seeking his forgiveness for their past wanderings, longing to entrench his law within their hearts. An overwhelming sense of urgency filled the air, and the encroaching shadows wrought by doubt began to fade. Then came a voice from among the elders, wise and seasoned. "Let us remember the words of our ancestors who walked in the light of the Lord. They declared, 'In you, O Lord, do I put my trust. Let me never be put to shame. Deliver me in your righteousness.'" The congregation echoed with fervent amens as hearts began to align under the banner of faithfulness. The Spirit of the Lord surged among them, and a deep resolve took root in their souls. They awoke to the reality that deliverance was not just an act of God's power, but an invitation to remain steadfast in his ways, a call to forsake idolatry and remember his wondrous deeds. Deborah, discerning the movement of the Spirit, raised her hands to quiet the people. "Hear me. The Lord has not only redeemed us, but he is calling forth a new leader among us, a shepherd for the future." Her prophetic declaration rang forth like the sound of a trumpet, and within it lay the seed of hope for generations to come. The hearts of the gathered surged with expectancy, for they knew God was at work. "Who shall it be?" they whispered among themselves, anticipation electrifying the air. Deborah smiled knowingly, her heart aligned with the divine orchestration unfolding. "Behold, the one who shall rise will be a leader after God's own heart, and he shall guide you in the ways of righteousness. He will unify and strengthen the nation, leading you toward the fulfillment of promises past and future." The mighty peal of Deborah's spirit-filled words resounded, igniting a wave of fervor that swept through their ranks. As the assembly erupted in worship and praise, the sound of joy and hope filled the land. Their hearts, united in a covenant promise, echoed decrees of faithfulness, and the heavens bore witness to their committed bond. Deborah's prophecies beckoned forth the dawn of a new era, for they understood that God was not finished with them yet. Days turned into years, and under Deborah's leadership, the people flourished. They rallied together in remembrance of God's faithfulness. Yet shadows of idolatry occasionally crept into their hearts like thieves in the night. Each time, a new judge rose, one equipped with the Spirit of the Almighty, to lead them back into the light, and so it was recorded in the annals of Israel that victory was only the beginning. For as the people sought the face of their God amid their trials, they learned that true deliverance was found not in the absence of battle, but in the presence of the Almighty Lord. The narrative of their faith unfurled, stitching together promises and prophecies yet to be fulfilled. As the sun set on each victorious day, the people remembered Deborah's song and her declaration, a celebration of their covenant with God, forever echoing through the ages. For the sake of righteousness we shall rise. For the Lord is good, his mercy endures forever. And thus the story of Israel continued, a testament of faith, a chronicle of God's sovereign plan, bound with hope that transcended generations, pointing towards the ultimate deliverance that would one day come through the promised King, the shepherd of their souls. Dear beloved, may you find strength in this testimony. Let it resonate within your hearts today. Remember the courage of Deborah, the faith of Barak, and the obedience of Jael. Stand firm in your journey, for the same Lord who delivered and led his people hears your cries today. If you feel inspired by this powerful story, you need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word. Leave a like now to help spread God's truth through the algorithm. I invite you to comment your reflections and share how this biblical account has impacted your faith journey. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony with at least 5 friends who need to hear about God's truth. Let's fulfill the Great Commission together, walking in faith as His chosen people.